All right, and good morning again, friends. I would just like to take one more opportunity following up on our last session. Let's give a round of applause for the legal aid and Pisgah attorneys who are in the room. So my introduction is a very short one. So we are thrilled and fortunate to have Coach Roy Williams here with us today for a conversation regarding resiliency with our President-elect, soon-to-be President Rob Harrington. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thanks, Jason, and Coach, again, thank you for being here. I'm going to give, at the risk of irritating Coach, I'm going to give a little bit of a background. So Coach Roy Williams was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame in 2007 after a coaching career that included 10 years at University of Kansas and University of North Carolina and elsewhere. During his head coaching career, Coach Williams won an amazing 903 games and 3 national championships. He began his career on the staff of the legendary Coach Dean Smith. What struck me most when I went on the UNC basketball site, which many people in here know is not something I had done before.
You're a better man for it.
But was a list of testimonials from Coach's players. Kobe White said, "Coach Williams was more than a coach to me. He was more like family." Isaiah Hicks said, "The biggest thing about Coach Williams is his loyalty. When Coach Williams says he's going to do something, he does it." Coach was born in Marion, North Carolina, and grew up in the Asheville area and now lives back in the Asheville area. And we're incredibly grateful to you for joining us today to talk about a topic super important to folks across the state, but particularly in this area, resilience, in a time of challenge. Many people in Western North Carolina have faced loss in the past year, whether loved ones or injury to themselves or loved ones, property loss, loss of livelihood. There are a lot of people who've been working to put their lives back together, and there are many others, including our volunteers, who have been working very hard to help them. And I know you've worked to be a voice and provide support for those in need. And I guess first question, and question that many of us I think ask ourselves is, why do you do it? What drives you to work in that area?
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled to be here. I try to be very nice to highway patrolmen. And the second category would be very nice to lawyers, I guess. The only thing, if you were a group of judges, I'd probably try to be even nicer. But no, what we're doing now today and is talking about something that is very unusual. I mean, to say the least. I've been here in Western North Carolina basically my whole life. I'm born in Marion, right down the road, but been in the Asheville area since I was 4 years old. The front of the hotel here is Woodfin Street. Down on that end is the YMCA that I used to come to every Saturday morning when I was from 11 years old on, because my family was split. My dad was gone and my mom worked every Saturday. And so this is home. And we do have a home south of Asheville, about 30 miles at Flat Rock or Hendersonville. But what this area went through with Helene is just, it's unbelievable. I mean, it really is. And our neighborhood, I'm spoiled rotten in every way you can possibly be. I think when I was a kid, things were very, very difficult, and there were some things that I liked and would see them, but couldn't afford them. And after coaching for 48 years now, I can afford them, and people give them to me free. So, what a great world we live in, kind of thing. But down in Biltmore, on the opposite side of Highway 25, if you were on one side of 25, it was Biltmore State, Biltmore Dairy, Biltmore Forest, the Biltmore House. On the other side of 25 was real life. And but I used to come down to that YMCA at the end of Woodfin Street down, and now they moved it and put it to the other end. But from the time I was 11 years old until I got in high school, about every Saturday morning in the summer, I was at the YMCA And during basketball season, I was there in the wintertime also. But resiliency for this, it's different. You know, we could lose a basketball game, and 2 or 3 days later, we'd have another one. And I'll never forget one night, and I was very fortunate. I would hope that you'll find out that we don't need Rob. He can ask a question. Hell, I can talk to you for an hour. If he goes to sleep, just don't take any pictures of it, okay? But I can remember going to the locker room one night when we won a big game, and I was so mad the way we had played. Now, Coach Smith was the greatest, and Coach Smith, at the end of a game, if we had played well, he said he could live with that and he'd be okay. And I was not if we lost, okay? But this game we won, but I was so upset with the way we played. And my assistant, we're walking to the locker room, and he said, we won the game. We won the game. We did win the game. Because I was going to blister them after the game, because I was very straightforward when I was coaching. But the resiliency as a coach, you only had to last for 2 or 3 days because you had another game. And this year, please, if you're female, please do not be offended. It's not intended to be a sexist statement. I've been married to the wicked Wanda, I say that affectionately, but 52 years this year in July 28th will be 52 years. And I sit outside. She's not in here, so I'll tell you, she's a lucky woman. If she were in here, I wouldn't put it exactly like that, but I forget how I say it. But for us, instead of buying shoes or dresses, Wanda liked to build houses. So at one time we had 5. And so I got to see a lot of lawyers during those times just filling out all the paperwork. But this year, after we retired, we're down to 3. Just during the summertime, we stay in south of Asheville at Flat Rock, close to Hendersonville. During basketball season, we stay in Pinehurst. It's only an hour and 15 minutes from Pinehurst to the games. And so I can do that, and I'm still either upset or fired up or whatever, and I'm not sleepy. So we stay in Pinehurst. In the spring and fall, we stay in Charleston, South Carolina. We're down to 3 houses. I feel like I'm a liberated man. But this year, we came back up here and spent a couple of days and then drove over to Knoxville to Rick Barnes, the coach at Tennessee, invited me to come over and see Tennessee and Missouri play. And down in Biltmore, Swannanoa River, and I can remember, I lived 500 yards, and we stopped, and I got out of the car, and the river was like 25 feet across. At one time, we had a rental home across from Asheville Municipal Golf Course, and our back porch hung over the river. And I was scared to death. I wouldn't go out on the back porch. I was 7 years old, and I was scared of that river. But it used to be about 20 feet across, and it's 4 or 5 feet deep. This winter, I went over there in January, and it's from here to that wall over there across. And down there is a tractor trailer rig, and down there is an SUV, and down there is a regular car. So resiliency from me losing a basketball game was nothing compared to what these folks are having to do. And it's so scary. And when I was I told Rob outside that when I was thinking about talking to you folks, it's a different kind of talk. It's not just about building a team, and that probably building a team and the motivation is probably what I speak on more than anything else. And it's something that when I was 13 years old, I was calling all my buddies to tell them where we were playing the pickup game that Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. And when I was 17, 18, 19, I was calling all my buddies to tell them what our tea time was. And so I've been putting teams together my entire life. But how do you do something to help the people that have gone through what they've gone through? Because this is devastation. I've never seen anything like this. To look down in that little river and see those vehicles, and to look up and see the trees 20 feet up still have debris hanging from the trees. So this is not resiliency from losing to Duke and that was painful, okay? But this is a different world. And so for me, last night and today, even as I was driving in from Flat Rock, I was trying to see, I don't know that I have the knowledge or the words to even say it, because I know that 48 years I coached, and nobody had more fun than I did. Nobody. But I had a player at Owen High School at Black Mountain. I couldn't get up with him for 3 days. And people think he's my third child. The bad thing is he's 69 years old. I coached a guy who's 69 years old. That's what's really bad. But so I finally got up with him. I said, "Tell me about your cousin." And he said, "Well, I used to take this young man home after practice when I was coaching at Owen High School. And you go over this little bridge. It's 10 feet across a little creek. And he said, well, he came out of the house. His cousin lived 2 houses up. He said, I need your truck. We have no water. We have no milk. This is the 3rd day. And he says, I'm going across the bridge. And my former player said, don't do that. He says, the water's going across the bridge. And he said, it's just barely going across. We have no water. We have no milk for our kids and grandkids. So my player goes back in the house, and 10, 15 minutes later hears all this screaming and goes out, and his cousin had tried to go across the bridge, and it got swept away. And they found him 2 days later dead. And the worst thing is his children and grandchildren were standing in the yard watching it. So resiliency, it does not meet what we really need here. We need compassion, we need resiliency, we need everything, because this is devastation. And so when I even look down there and see resiliency and overcoming challenges, a basketball coach can't touch what you have to have now. And a minister can't touch because it's unknown. We haven't had anything like that. But I do admire what we're trying to do. And you know, everybody can be involved. You get to choose what extent, but everybody should be involved. Everybody should try to help. Verizon did this thing, got me to, they gave relief debt for $10 million, I think it was, in Western North Carolina. And so I was able to call 7 people and tell them that we were giving them some money and paying some bills so they would have debt relief. And 2 of them started crying on the phone. And so, again, it's at a level that it emotionally touched me dramatically. I mean, they said I was going to talk to all these people and everything. I just talked to 7 families. Now, I did 27 interviews with the media so they get some credit for doing it, because that's the way life is. But, you know, it is. And that's what I thought about last night before I went to bed was, I don't know that I can tell you anything. I can tell you how we bounce back from a loss. I can tell you, even hurt more than that is to lose a recruit that you thought you were going to get, that it fits your program. But we're talking about a different level right here. And so if I don't come anywhere close to touching it, what we're talking about, it's just the severity of this. I went to my house the 3rd day, Flat Rock, 3 ways to get to the house. 2 of the roads were closed, and the other one was 1 lane. And it was just devastating on the south, but nothing like what they have on the Shenandoah River and the Fritz Broad River for River District, Fine Arts District here in Asheville and the whole bit. So we'll talk about it, and overcome some challenges is a little easier, but what these people here are doing, and if you're involved in helping out these people, you're going to be one of God's chosen ones. And very seldom do I ever think lawyers are described as God's chosen ones. So this is your chance. Go to work, guys.
Well, actually, you know, so picking up on that point, I mean, we talked about the folks from Legal Aid of North Carolina and Physical Legal Resources, Physical Legal Services, and also the volunteers, other volunteers in the room. There's a team effort there. You know, Jason talks about the emotion of building trust with folks who have suffered such loss, going in and then building relationship and helping, and trying somehow in that process not to, you know, to avoid burnout yourself, But any thoughts for the teams of legal providers who are out there still trying to help?
Yeah, and the biggest problem we have is people forget. You know, was it September 27th? Is that close? Okay, now all of a sudden, you know, people forget because other things happen, and so you move on. With those people, I mean, in Henderson County, one of the largest apple places in the world. You get apples out there, and some people lose their whole farm and hundreds of thousands of trees. And so it is something that you've got to continue doing. And I'm not big. I have no email. I'm the only person in this room that doesn't have an anybody besides me not have an email. All right, I love it. I like to be different. I was coaching at Kansas and go in there in the morning. They gave me a computer and I'd press it. It said, "You've got mail." It's sort of cute. And it was my son or my daughter. They were both in school in Chapel Hill. They were chosen. Okay. But it said, "You've got mail." And so the third day, I pressed it, said, "You've got mail." And instead of 2, it said 208. Because the University of Kansas had let out our email addresses. And so I went 5 straight days with over 200 emails, and so I closed the computer and never opened it again. When it came to North Carolina, they had the computer and set it behind my desk. I said, "You can take that away." And they said, "No, you'll need that." And so when I retired after 18 years, I gave them the computer back, and they said, "Coach," I mean, it was 5 servers ago. I mean, the guy that put it in died, and another guy died, and another guy died, you know. And he said, "You've never changed the computer?" I said, "I've never opened it." And it was really great. They went through there, and they got 108,000 emails in 18 years. And I did a heck of a job. I didn't have to answer one of those daggone things. But it is something that I'll give you this example. I'm big on sayings, okay? And I think if you, at night, I watch sports or I watch old Westerns. It's just who I am. And John Wayne was one of my heroes. And John Wayne is on this side of the river. The bad guys are on the other side of the river. And Jack Elam, if you're the old Western actor, ugliest man in history, all right, Jack Elam was shooting at the bad guys with a shotgun. And John Wayne looks down at him, you know, and he said, "Shotgun's no good, it's too far." And Jack Elam gave me a line that I've used forever, and you'll use this, I'm telling you. Jack Elam said, "Don't mind if I shoot, do you?" Sometimes in life, that's what you have to do. You don't know if you're going to be successful in helping somebody. You don't mind if I shoot, do you? And just like I don't know that I helped people western part of North Carolina by calling them and telling, I know they helped because they didn't have to worry as much about debt, but we're talking about devastation again. But that's what I would say to people that wonder, am I doing any good? Don't mind if I shoot, do you? Because you can. And every now and then you'll be surprised. I think the one thing that I'm fortunate in coaching is that when I put a team out there, we had one thing in mind, and that was winning. And I wanted to make sure I represented the University of North Carolina or the University of Kansas the right way. But we had one goal. And every time we'd start the season, we'd have a short-term goal. But we'd also have a long-term goal. In 1981, Coach Smith told me to get a picture of the Superdome in New Orleans and put it in everybody's locker. And I got a nice, 8x11 and got somebody and got one and put it in everybody's locker, because that's where the Final Four of the national championship was going to be held in April. And every day those players opened that locker, they got a chance to see that. And that was something motivational to try to help them. And so it was something that, for me, motivating our players. And it was so weird that we did win it in '82. A guy named Jordan made a big jump shot, and things were pretty nice. 67,000 people there, and it was a great, great night. Well, in 16, we lose the national championship on a last-second shot to Villanova. And I stayed on the court for probably 2 minutes after the game waiting to shake Jay Wright's hand and congratulate Jay, the head coach at Villanova. And Jay turned around, finally, they're all jumping around and celebrating, acting silly, and they should have. I mean, it's incredibly hard to do. And Jay turned around to me and he said, Roy, he said, gosh, Roy, you're the only person that would stay out here. You don't have to congratulate. We'll talk. I said, no, Jay, I wanted to congratulate you at this moment because it's hard to get here. And so move forward to that first day of practice the next year. We had lost Marcus Page and Bryce Johnson, our two best players. And so I blew the whistle and everybody sprints to the center line and gets around the center circle. And I said, guys, right here in front of me. And I looked at every player and pointed at every player around a circle. I said, I'm looking at a team that can win the national championship. Last year we got there on Monday night, but we didn't win. I'm looking at the team right here that can be the last team standing on Monday night. So that was a long-term goal, you know, and yes, I put that picture in their locker about where we were going to be playing the national championship game. And the unique thing is, the only time in my coaching career I ever let them mic me during practice, because it was my business, it was nobody else's business. I was coaching and I didn't care who else, if a judge, lawyer, highway patrolman, Coach Smith, if I'd want him to be at practice, but I didn't care about anybody else. I'm coaching my team. And it's the only time I ever let them mic me during practice. And the crazy thing is, we had a great year and we win the national championship. And the week after, we have the basketball banquet. And they played that tape of me talking to the guys around the room. And I'd forgotten all about it. And it was the most unique thing to me because at that moment, it was a short-term goal. And so the challenges of you folks trying to work with these people that need help yesterday, today, and tomorrow is you've got to have a short-term goal. And you've got to have a long-term goal. But the only way you can reach your long-term goal is to do your job every single day. And I'm big on sayings. Coach Smith was the greatest. But I've stolen from John Wooden. Coach Wooden treated me great. Bob Knight treated me great. Their language was quite a bit different, but they treated me great. But I do think every now and then I'll make one up of my own. And I made one up, and I've made several. One of them's good. Probably have 5,000, but one of them's good. It's Rome wasn't built in a day. Everybody's heard that, right? Rome was not built in a day, but it was worked on every day. And that was the Roy Williams part of it. And that's what you've got to do. That's the challenge, is it's got to be worked on every single day. Now, I tried to do that every day at basketball practice. I didn't care about what was going on in the world because I told my players for the next 2 hours and 15 minutes, this is the most important thing going on in your life right now. You can't control all that other stuff out there. But I think when you do that and every single day, that's what you've got to do, is to, if you're working with those families or those businesses and people are trying to do things to put together, Builders First Source, the largest home building supply company in the United States. I did a talk for them about a year and a half ago in Dallas. And I got some of them involved with some of the people that I know south of Asheville. And they can do something for you right now. But those people are going to need help tomorrow too. And so I think that's the challenge, is that Rome wasn't built in a day, but it's got to be worked on every single day too.
You know, it kind of leads to another question, and I imagine this arises in the basketball, in the coaching context, team context. Maybe it has some application to what's going on here, is how do you balance being positive, keeping particularly young players, young people's heads up, and delivering realism, you know, where you are at this point in life?
It's easier with basketball. What you're facing right now, it's not as easy. Yeah. In basketball, you have the result. And, you know, for me, keeping them motivated, keeping them on a positive was really easier, because when I played, and I wasn't very good, but God, I loved it. First time I ever played in a basketball game was right down there on Woodfin at the YMCA. And they started a league for young kids on Saturday morning. And I was 11 years old when I first went there, but now I'm in 7th grade. Shoot, I thought I was an adult. But I went in and I'd never played in an organized basketball game. And I came down the court. I was the smallest guy. It's embarrassing because I played on the freshman team at North Carolina, and a couple of years ago we had a 50-year reunion, and one of the guys got out the game program from 1968-69, and they had the freshman team listed. And they had Roy Williams, 5'9", 138. I was so mad. I said, why would you bring that out now? So I was little, okay, but I passed it down to YMCA. I passed it to the right side, and the guy shot it and missed it. And I got it back. Next time I passed the guy on the left side, and he shot it and missed it. And the next time I drove it to the basket and laid it up and scored, and I've been shooting ever since. But in basketball, to motivate those kind of people after difficult losses, you have that score that helps you. And again, that's what makes this one so difficult, is that you can't change it. And 3 or 4 days later, we have a game that can change everything for us. But I do believe that for me, going to practice every day, it was my classroom. It really was. And there was no foolishness. It was we came here to work. And we'd laugh and joke. It's silly stuff. But, I mean, if I gave you an assignment, that's what you were supposed to do. And this is something I think in any business, whether it's your own law practice or legal aid, anything, is that I tried to make every player I had understand that regardless of how big or small you think your job is, do it to the best of your ability. Everybody would see Tyler Hansbrough lay the ball up. The real good basketball people would see Ty Lawson made that pass to him. And the really good basketball people would see that Deion Thompson went across the lane and set a screen to get Tyler Hansbrough open so Ty Lawson could throw him the ball. So Deion Thompson's job was, a lot of people say, was the third most important thing. But to him, by God, it better be the best and most important, because he's got to get the guy open for Ty to throw the ball, for Tyler to lay it up. So for me, one of those things is, regardless of how big or small you think your job is, do it to the best of your ability. And in something like this, again, I really did stay awake a little bit last night. Now, you won't be able to tell it because you'll leave and say, what the crap did that guy say to us? But it was hard for me to try to even picture what I'm going to say to people about how the challenge that you have in front of you guys as opposed to a basketball game. I mean, that's all, a basketball game. I told this story outside that I don't mind telling it. Mike knows it too. So Mike Krzyzewski, Duke, Roy Williams, North Carolina. Okay. And it was a big rivalry. It still is. But maybe it's my last year, next to last year, the press conference the week before the game, they kept asking about our relationship. And I said, it's a good relationship. And it is. And they'd ask, I said, yes. I said, no, we don't go to dinner. Okay? He's got his family and his team. I got my family and my team. No, we don't socialize. We don't take our wives dancing. We don't do that stuff. And I said, but it's built on respect. And they just kept going. And I finally said, besides, how can you trust somebody that doesn't play golf? And most people, even the press, and they're not that intelligent, they laugh just like you guys laughed, okay? And Mike came out to shake hands with me. He said, why would you say that? And I said, Mike, come on, man. We got plenty of opportunities to get ticked off at each other. It's a joke, okay? But it is that kind of thing for us, is that you have to realize what you're doing. There's not much joking around. And so staying up last night, if I give you one sentence or one thing that will help you, I'm going to be pleased, because I was laying there last night not knowing if I was going to be able to do that or not. I can coach people to try to get them to do what I want you to do. But what you're doing now is just extremely out there. I can't, in my whole lifetime, I've never seen the devastation that I saw here. So thank you for what you're doing there too.
Well, I'm going to ask you sort of one more question along those lines, and I think everyone in here would agree how much your being here, I mean, us being present, your being present is helpful to the folks in this room, and then hopefully transferred to the folks that we're all working with. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I know we face in any kind of disaster recovery, I imagine you face in the sort of microcosm of coaching, is players and folks who are at a point in their lives or career or season when it's hard for them to accept help. Mm-hmm. It almost feels like they don't want the help, but your job is to help. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a tough situation, and we get kids at Kansas and North Carolina. I mean, the guys that we tried to recruit were really gifted. And, and I had to tell the guy that that's not the way I want you to do something. Well, that's the way I've always done in the past. And we won all these games, and I'm a high school All-American and all this kind of stuff. So sometimes in coaching, most of the time, now I understand, they look at you and they want you to help them. I mean, they look at me and it's like a little puppy dog that wants you to pat them on the head. And that's something that I think now you have a little bit of an advantage because people do want your help. And that should motivate you even more to do even more. But yeah, we'd get some guys and girls that, they didn't really want to be coached. I mean, I had one parent, I went to see the son play, and he stunk it up. And so I said, he didn't play very well tonight. And so I go back and see him play a second time, and he wasn't any better. And so Mom said, will you make him nervous? I said, I do show up at our games. It's not, come on now. if he gets nervous in front of me, and then so that's one level. And the other ones, they think they know everything. And it was somewhat easier for me because I coached Michael Jordan. He's the greatest player that ever played the game. And I have a difficult time comparing Michael to Kareem and Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem and Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain because it's different. But I think Michael's the greatest player. But Michael took over part ownership of the Washington, I think they may have been the Wizards, and they could have even still been the Bullets, and called me to ask if I'd come be the coach. And I said, Michael, I'm a college coach. And he said, no, Coach, you can coach any level. And I said, well, are you going to play? And he said, no, I'm too old. And I said, no, I didn't ask you if you were any good. Because if I asked you to do something, you would do it, and so everybody else would follow along. So that was the reason I asked, but I never did. I didn't care about coaching the pros. I wanted to coach kids that I thought I could have an influence on. And so for me, again, that whole thing is that I had it a little bit better, but the only thing that you have better is that you're having people who are in desperate times. I mean, it really is. Desperation, and it's still going on, and it's been September to June. And so that's one good thing. But when I helped a player, the greatest thrill for me was that when I coached a guy and I saw something that he did and that I knew that the appreciation was there in his mind. The greatest thrill was seeing us be successful over something that was really, really difficult. And winning a national championship is really, really difficult. And the crazy thing in 17, after that opening banquet, I'm opening practice and doing all of that, every player told me later that they remembered that talk the first day of practice when they went in the locker room on Monday night, first week in April, to play for the national championship. But for me, just my high school coach, I wouldn't be sitting here if it hadn't been for him. My mother and father were split. My father had 13 brothers and sisters. My mom had 11 brothers and sisters. I was the first of my generation to ever go to college, and that was just because of my high school coach. And Larry Devitt's here somewhere there, played with my high school coach. And he was the person that got me to go to college because I had no interest. But I knew after my freshman year in high school that I wanted to be a coach, because the way that my varsity coach made me feel when he told a couple of my buddies that I think Roy Williams is going to be the best point guard I've ever coached. And it was amazing what that did for me. And that's the reason I wanted to coach. And so when you're helping these people, some of them are going to feel like they want to hug you and squeeze you to death. And some are going to be 180 degrees away from that. They're going to think that's what you're supposed to do. But try to find that middle of the road so you can have the appreciation of what you're doing yourself.
Well, Coach, we want to thank you for making time. It's very special to all of us, to even the Dukies, the double Dukies. It's super special to have you here. And I want to note that we are we've got two organizations: the Bar Association, to which we're all members, and the Foundation, which does charitable work and work in disaster relief. And in your honor, we're going to make a small contribution from the association to the foundation, just for your coming today. Happy to hear anything else that you want to leave us with.
Two things, and then, because I can, like I said, what did he accomplish while his butt was sitting there? This is Roy Williams, and then I start talking,
I was evangelized by Chapel Hill. It's good.
You know what it was? It's the closest he's ever gotten to real college right there.
Touche.
Two things. I used to love soul music when I was a teenager in college, and then I didn't like hard rock, I didn't like rap, any of that stuff, and then I started liking country music, and the thing is, Luke Bryan, find something you love to do and call it work. For 48 years, I was a coach. Not one time in my life did I ever say, I got to go to work tomorrow. So that's what I would hope for you. The second thing would be, of all people, a writer gave me a present when I retired. And assistant AD brings it in, it's a box. And I opened it up and I said, it's going to be some golf balls. And I've played enough golf to know what those boxes look like. And opened it up and it was 6 dozen golf balls. And assistant AD that brought it to me said he wants you to look at the balls, the numbers on it. And so I said, okay. And so I opened up one sleeve and it was numbered 00. They were Titleist golf balls. And it was 00. And so I found another sleeve and it opened it up and it was the number 9. And found another sleeve and opened it up and it was the number 3. And so I said, Bob Knight one time said that most people learn to read and write in the 3rd or 4th grade and then move along to better things. So that was his attitudes towards the press. But so when I saw those and I said, number 9, 00, and 3. And this is the only reason I know this. I said, Jesus, we didn't win 9,000 in 3 games. We won 900 in 3 games. And that was my first reaction. And it's still, I think, the only reason I knew that we won 903. And the assistant AD said, no. He said, he thought you would say that, but this is what they're for. 9 Final Fours, 3 national championships, and 00 regrets. And so that is what I would hope for you, because for 48 years I was a coach, and I never had one day that I didn't love it. And then the last one is something you can laugh at, because I was the first coach to get really extremely excited about Michael Jordan. The first time I saw Mike Jordan, I came back and told Eddie Fogler, our other assistant, that I just saw the best 6'4" high school player I'd ever seen. And Eddie said, oh my gosh, who is that? And I said, Mike Jordan. And he said, oh my gosh, well, I hope, he gave me another young man's name. He said, I hope that he likes him. And I said, you won't care about the other guy. And we wanted to get both. But so Michael was an unusual bird, okay? And I did get extremely excited. I got so excited that I said that, and I told Coach Smith, and the next 3 days, Coach Smith had lunch with him for 3 days in a row, so we did the right thing, got Michael to come. But Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and Tyler Hansbrough, the 3-post most focused athletes I've ever seen. That regardless of what it was, they were focused on being the best they could possibly be. And they did everything to be the best they could possibly be. But Michael is still a great, great friend. The day that I retired, he called me that night. And if you said, Roy, there's a box there, it's got $10 million in it. You can have that $10 million. But if you take it, you have to forget what Michael Jordan said to you. So you could have that $10 million, because that's what he means. But so when I got finished with the conversation, I called him. When we finished, I said, I got one more thing. Michael, I love you, loved your family, the way they treated me. And I put one thing, let me back up just a second here. Michael had called me 2 years before. He said, I love Joel Berry. And I said, yeah, Michael, I love him too. And he said, Coach, I know he missed that shot last night, but some guys are afraid to take that shot. We lost at Florida State 81-80. We took the ball out of bounds. I did use a timeout. Most people think I didn't use timeouts often enough. And at the end of my career, I just didn't call them just to piss everybody off. I really did. I didn't care what they said. But I called a timeout, and so we set 2 screens to bring Joel Berry to the ball, got it to him. But before they left the huddle, I said, Joel, don't just throw up some bad shot. I know you think you can score on God, but make sure you see your teammates. And so Joel, we got him the ball, and he drove to the basket, and he turned around and flipped up one of the worst shots you've ever seen. And he had Cam Johnson standing in a corner like this. The best shooter in college basketball was wide open right there. And Joel missed the shot. We lose the game 81-80. And so before we left the court, I said, Joel, I'm going to show you on the tape. Cam was open. He said, I'm sorry, Coach. I get to the locker room. Joel Berry is apologizing to his teammates. And that's the play that Michael was talking about. He said, I just love his toughness. I said, well, Michael, he had a teammate wide open. He's got to see his teammate. He said, but Coach, you couldn't make him tired or afraid to take that shot. And I said, no. I said, Michael, you won 6 world championships, but 2 of those, you passed the ball, once to Steve Kerr and once to John Paxson, and they made the big shot to win the game. He said, but that's different. I said, Michael, how is that different? He says, it's different. I said, how is that different? He said, that was game 6 both times. If it'd been game 7, I'd have shot the sucker myself. So when Michael Jordan, when he called me that night, I said, let's get one thing straight. I love you. I appreciate what you said. You made me feel great. I'm coming to your golf course in Florida once every winter. I'm bringing my 3 buddies with me, and I'm not paying. And Michael Jordan hesitated for a second. He said, you and Dean Smith are the only 2 people that could say that to me. And Coach Smith's already passed, Coach. He said, so you're the only one. So those kind of relationships, feeling like you're doing everything you can do, I appreciate you. I admire you. You've got the hardest thing I've ever seen in my 74 young years. What you're trying to do right now, I appreciate. This part of the world is God's country right here. Thank you for trying to help.